Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Station Alpha, watching the biggest ship she had ever seen appear in space around Earth. The alien vessels were huge, each one 10 times larger than Earth's biggest warship. There were 50 of them arranged in a perfect circle around the planet. "Ma'am, they're sending a message," said Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. Sarah nodded. "Put it on screen." The main display showed a tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms. Its voice was strange, like metal scraping against metal, but the universal translator made the words clear. "Greetings, primitive inhabitants of the third planet. I am Ambassador Kethval of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps, speaking for the Galactic Federation. We come to inform you that your world has been discovered and must now follow galactic law." Sarah kept her face calm, but inside she was thinking fast. Earth had known this day might come. Their telescopes had seen signs of alien civilizations for years. The Defense Force had prepared for this moment. "We are here to help you join the galactic community," the ambassador continued. "For your own safety, you must accept Federation protection and guidance. This is how it has always been done." Sarah stepped forward. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Force. We welcome contact with other worlds. What exactly does this protection involve?" The alien's expression looked pleased, like a teacher happy with a good student. "Excellent. Most species ask the same question. First, you will surrender all weapons of war. The Federation will protect you from threats. Second, you will follow all Federation laws and regulations. Third, you will provide tribute, resources, workers, and knowledge to help maintain galactic peace." "I see," Sarah said. "And what do we get in return?" "Safety," Kethval said as if it was obvious. "The galaxy is dangerous. Many hostile species would destroy a weak world like yours. Under Federation protection, you will be safe. You will also receive basic technology upgrades and access to galactic trade networks." "That sounds very generous," Sarah said. "May I see these laws and regulations you mentioned?" The ambassador looked surprised. "You wish to read them?" "Most species simply accept our guidance. We prefer to know what we're agreeing to," Sarah replied. A few minutes later, Sarah's tablet contained 47 pages of Federation law. She read through them quickly while the ambassador waited. The laws were detailed and covered everything. Humans would have no weapons. They could not leave their solar system without permission. They could not develop certain technologies. They had to send 20% of their population to work on Federation projects. They could not make their own laws anymore. Dr. Martinez, Earth's chief scientist, whispered in Sarah's ear. "It's slavery, Captain. Dressed up nicely, but still slavery." Sarah nodded slightly and looked back at the screen. "Ambassador Kethval, these laws are quite extensive. You mentioned that this is how it has always been done. How many species have joined the Federation this way?" 847 worlds have been successfully integrated," Kethval said proudly. "Not one has ever refused Federation protection." "Interesting," Sarah said. "And what happens to species that refuse?" The ambassador's forearms moved in what might have been a shrug. "It has never happened. No species is foolish enough to refuse safety and guidance from their betters. Your technology is primitive. Your society is chaotic. You need our help to survive." Sarah looked around at her crew. They were all watching her, waiting for her decision. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had never asked to be protected by aliens. She thought about human history, about all the times people had been told to give up their freedom for safety. "Ambassador Kethval," she said finally, "I appreciate you taking the time to explain Federation law to us. We have listened carefully to your offer." "Excellent," the alien said. "When will you begin dismantling your military forces?" Sarah smiled. It was not a happy smile. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. We're not accepting your offer." The ambassador's face went through several expressions. Confusion, then surprise, then something that might have been panic. "I don't understand." "You must accept. All species accept Federation protection." "That's where you're wrong," Sarah said. "You see, you've made an assumption about Earth. You think we need your protection because we're primitive. You think we should follow your laws because you're more advanced." "This is correct," Kethval said, though he sounded less certain now. Sarah's smile got wider. "That's cute. We have our own." "Your own what?" the ambassador asked. "Laws," Sarah said. "We've been making our own laws for thousands of years. We've gotten pretty good at it. And one of our most important laws is that free people don't give up their freedom just because someone with bigger guns tells them to." The alien fleet around Earth moved closer, forming a tighter circle. Sarah could see more ships appearing in the distance. Captain Chen, Kethaval said, his voice now cold. You do not understand the situation. The Federation has the power to destroy your world. We are offering you a choice. Accept protection or face the consequences. Oh, I understand perfectly, Sarah said. You're threatening us. In human law, we call that extortion. It's illegal. Your laws do not matter here, the ambassador said. Only Federation law matters, Sarah leaned forward. See, that's where you and I disagree. Our laws matter to us. They matter a lot. And we fought wars against people who tried to tell us our laws don't matter. You would fight the entire Federation? Kethaval asked. With your primitive weapons? Your few dozen ships? This is madness. Maybe, Sarah said. But here's something you should know about humans, Yunandai. We don't surrender just because the odds are bad. We've beaten longer odds before. The communication channel went quiet for a long moment. Sarah could see the ambassador talking to others off-screen, their voices too low for the translator to pick up. Finally, Kethaval returned. Captain Chen, you are making a mistake. The Federation has never encountered resistance before because resistance is pointless. We have technology beyond your understanding. We have ships that could turn your planet to dust. I'm sure you do, Sarah said. But here's what you don't understand about us. We've spent our entire history fighting each other. And one thing we learned is that the person with the biggest weapons doesn't always win. Sometimes the person who's fighting for something important wins instead. What could be more important than survival? The ambassador asked. Sarah thought about that for a moment. Freedom, she said finally. The right to make our own choices. The right to succeed or fail on our own terms. You're offering us safety, but you want our souls in return. That's not a deal humans make. She stood up straighter. So here's Earth's counteroffer, Ambassador. Take your fleet and leave our solar system. Come back when you want to talk as equals, not as masters talking to slaves. We're happy to trade with you, work with you, maybe even be friends. But we won't be your servants. The alien's face showed clear shock. This is unprecedented. No species has ever. You cannot simply refuse Federation law. Watch us, Sarah said. She reached over and cut the communication channel. The bridge was silent for a moment. Ma'am, Lieutenant Torres said quietly. They're powering up their weapons. Sarah nodded. Red alert. All ships to battle stations. Send word to Earth Command. It looks like we're going to war. As alarms sounded throughout the station, Sarah looked out at the alien fleet surrounding Earth. They had bigger ships, better weapons, and thousands of years of experience, conquering other worlds, but they had never faced humans before, and humans had something the Federation had apparently forgotten. About the absolute refusal to surrender their freedom. No matter what the cost, the war was about to begin. Ambassador Kethaval stood in the command center of the Federation flagship, staring at the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. In his 300 years of diplomatic service, he had never seen anything like this. The humans had not only refused Federation protection, they had called it slavery. Sir, his aide Veltar said nervously, the Council is demanding an explanation. How did the integration fail? Kethaval's forearms moved in frustration. It didn't fail. The humans simply refused. They said they have their own laws. But that's impossible, Veltar said. Primitive species don't have real laws. They have customs, traditions, maybe tribal rules. Nothing that could challenge Federation authority. That's what I thought too, Kethaval said. He looked at the datapad in his hands, which contained something the humans had sent them. A document. They called their legal framework. He had been trying to understand it for 3 days now. The humans claimed their laws were designed to protect individual rights. This made no sense to Kethaval. Laws were meant to maintain order, to ensure that the strong could guide the weak. How could laws protect individuals from authority? Who would maintain order if authority was limited? Dr. Zephyne, the Federation's leading expert on primitive societies, entered the command center. She looked tired and confused. Ambassador, she said, I've been studying the human legal documents they provided. I need to report something disturbing. What is it? Kethaval asked. Their laws are not primitive, Dr. Zephyne said slowly. They're sophisticated, more sophisticated than ours in some ways, and they're designed around concepts we don't have words for. Kethaval felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Explain. They have something called due process, Dr. Zephyne said. It means that before you can punish someone, you have to prove they did something wrong. You have to give them a chance to defend themselves. You can't just decide they're guilty because you're in charge. That's ridiculous, Veltar said. Authority decides who is guilty. That's what authority means. Not to humans, Dr. Zephyne continued. They also have something called burden of proof. If you accuse someone of wrongdoing, you have to prove it. The accused doesn't have to prove they're innocent. Kethval tried to process this.
You mean
the accuser has to prove their case? Not the other way around? Yes, and they have checks and balances, systems to prevent any one person or group from having too much power. They actually designed their governments to fight against themselves. This is insanity, Veltar said. How do they maintain order? How do they make decisions? How do they function at all? Dr. Zephyne looked at her notes. Apparently quite well. Their technological advancement rate is actually faster than the galactic average. Their society is stable despite, or perhaps because of, these protections for individuals. An alarm sounded. Captain Nexoth, the military commander, appeared on the communication screen. Ambassador, he said, we have a situation. One of our patrol ships attempted to detain a human merchant vessel that was traveling outside their solar system without proper permits. Good, Kethval said. Perhaps a small demonstration will help them understand Federation authority. Sir, Captain Nexoth said slowly, the human ship fought back. What do you mean, fought back? Kethval asked. They refused to surrender. When we moved to disable their engines, they returned fire. When we boarded their ship, the crew resisted with weapons. 3 of our security personnel were injured before we could subdue them. Kethval stared at the screen. They fought? A single merchant ship fought a Federation patrol vessel? Yes, sir. And when we interrogated the captain, he said something strange. He claimed that under human law what we did was piracy, and that he had the right to defend his ship and crew. Dr. Zephyne spoke up. Actually, Ambassador, according to their legal documents, he's correct. Humans have something called self-defense rights. They believe they can fight back against what they consider unlawful authority. But we are the law, Veltar said. Not in their system, Dr. Zephyne replied. In their system, law comes from agreement between the governed and those who govern. Without that agreement, authority has no legitimacy. Kethval felt overwhelmed. Everything he knew about civilization was being challenged. Captain Nexoth, what is the status of the human merchant? We have him in custody, sir. But there's another problem. Earth is demanding his release. They say we had no authority to detain him outside Federation space. They're claiming that since they never agreed to Federation law, we can't enforce it against their citizens. This is becoming complicated, Kethval said. What does the council say? Captain Nexoth looked uncomfortable. The council is divided, sir. Some members want to make an example of Earth to prevent other species from getting similar ideas. Others are concerned about the legal precedent. What legal precedent? Kethval asked. Well, sir, if we attack Earth for refusing to follow laws they never agreed to, it raises questions about the legitimacy of Federation authority over other species as well. Kethval sat down heavily. In 300 years, no one had ever questioned Federation authority. It simply existed like gravity or the speed of light. The idea that authority needed consent was alien to him. His communication panel chimed. Sir, his assistant said, Captain Chen from Earth is requesting another conversation. Put her through, Kethval said. Captain Chen appeared on the screen. She looked calm and professional, not at all like someone whose world was surrounded by a hostile fleet. Ambassador Kethval, she said, I understand you're having some difficulty with our legal concepts. Your legal concepts are confusing and dangerous, Kethval replied. How can a civilization function when authority is questioned? Captain Chen smiled. The same way a person stays healthy by exercising their muscles. Questioning authority keeps it strong and honest. When authority is never challenged, it becomes weak and corrupt. But without absolute authority, there is chaos, Kethval said. Is there? Captain Chen asked. Look at Earth. We have hundreds of different nations, all with their own governments. We argue constantly. We disagree about almost everything. And yet we've made it to space, we've eliminated most diseases, and we've managed not to destroy ourselves. Maybe a little chaos isn't such a bad thing. Kethval thought about this. The Federation prized order above all else. Decisions were made by the Council, implemented by the bureaucracy and enforced by the military. It was efficient and stable. But when was the last time anything really new had happened in the Federation? When was the last time someone had come up with a genuinely new idea? Captain Chen, he said slowly, your merchant captain who was detained. What happens now? Under human law, he's been kidnapped, Captain Chen said. We demand his immediate release and an apology. And if we refuse? Captain Chen's expression hardened. Then we treat it as an act of war and respond accordingly. You would fight the entire Federation over one person? Kethaval asked. Yes, Captain Chen said without hesitation. That's what rights mean. They apply to everyone or they don't apply to anyone. You can't protect most people and sacrifice a few when it's convenient. After the communication ended, Kethaval stood alone in the command center thinking. The humans were forcing him to examine beliefs he had held his entire life. What if they were right? What if the Federation system of absolute authority was not the only way to organize a civilization? What if it wasn't even the best way? For the first time in his life, Ambassador Kethaval began to wonder if the Federation might be wrong about something fundamental. And that thought terrified him more than any human weapon ever could. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the center of the largest courtroom in Galactic history. The Federation Council had built this temporary structure on a neutral space station to house what they were calling the Great Debate. Representatives from over 200 species filled the massive chamber, all watching as humanity challenged 800 years of galactic law. The Federation had agreed to this legal battle only because Captain Chen had found an ancient law in their own books, something called juridical combat. It was so old that most Federation lawyers had forgotten it existed. The law said that if two legal systems disagreed, they could put their ideas on trial to see which was better. The Federation calls this proceeding to order, announced Chief Arbiter Galshan, an ancient being from the first species to join the Federation. We are here to determine whether human legal concepts have any validity in galactic civilization. Sarah looked around the courtroom. On one side sat the Federation legal team, dozens of the galaxy's most experienced lawyers and judges. On the other side sat Earth's delegation, herself legal advocate Maria Santos, Dr. Elizabeth Warren Kim, who studied alien societies, and Commander Rodriguez for military expertise. The odds were not good. The Federation will present its case first, Chief Arbiter Galshan said. Prosecutor Zetharl rose to speak. He was impressive, tall with golden skin and a voice that filled the entire chamber. Honored arbiters, the case before us is simple. For 800 years, the Federation has brought peace and order to the galaxy. Our legal system has worked. It has prevented wars, eliminated poverty, and created the greatest civilization in galactic history. He gestured toward the human delegation. Now these newcomers claim our system is wrong. They offer chaos instead of order. They want to replace proven methods with dangerous experiments. They would rather fight than accept the wisdom of their betters. Sarah watched the arbiters' faces. Most looked convinced already. The humans speak of rights, Prosecutor Zetharl continued. But rights are a luxury that weak species cannot afford. The galaxy is dangerous. Pirates, hostile aliens, resource wars. These threats require strong leadership and quick decisions. Democracy is slow. Individual rights create confusion. The Federation provides what every species truly needs: safety and guidance. He paused dramatically. The Federation has integrated 847 worlds peacefully. Not one has ever complained. Not one has ever asked to leave. This proves our system works. When he finished, the courtroom was silent. Sarah had to admit it was a convincing argument. The humans may now present their case, Chief Arbiter Galshan said. Maria Santos stood up. She was small compared to most of the aliens in the room, but her voice was clear and strong. Honored arbiters, my colleague says the Federation has integrated 847 worlds peacefully. I want to examine that claim. She activated a holographic display. These are the economic reports from the first 50 species to join the Federation. Notice anything interesting? The display showed graphs and charts. Every single one of these worlds was rich in resources when they joined. Every single one is now poor. Their wealth has been transferred to older Federation members. Their people work in Federation factories and mines, but the profits go elsewhere. Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Several arbiters leaned forward to look more closely at the data. The prosecutor says no one has ever complained, Maria continued. But according to Federation records, 17 different species have submitted formal protests about their treatment. Those protests were classified as minor administrative issues and ignored. This is irrelevant, Prosecutor Zetharl said. Order requires sacrifice. The needs of the Federation come first. Exactly, Maria said. That's the problem. In the Federation system, the government's needs come first. In human law, the people's needs come first. Government exists to serve the people, not the other way around. She touched her display again. Let me show you what happens when people have rights. The hologram changed to show Earth's history. 300 years ago, humans created something called the United Nations. We gave up some of our sovereignty to create international law. But we did it voluntarily. We kept the right to leave if we wanted to. We kept the right to vote on important decisions. We kept the right to say no. Dr. Warren Kim stood up next. The prosecutor claims that democracy is slow and individual rights create confusion. Let me share some facts. Human technological advancement increased by 300% after we established democratic governments. Our disease rates dropped. Our literacy rates rose. Our wars became less frequent and less destructive. She looked directly at the arbiters. Why? Because when people have rights, they have reasons to work hard, to learn, to create. When people are free, they accomplish amazing things. But what about order? Asked one of the arbiters. How do you make decisions when everyone has opinions? Commander Rodriguez answered this question. We argue, we debate, we disagree. And yes, it's messy, but it works because everyone knows their voice matters. Even when we lose an argument, we accept the result because we had a fair chance to make our case. Sarah stood up for the final argument. Honored arbiters, the Federation claims it brings peace and order. But what kind of peace? The peace of the graveyard? The peace of slaves who are too afraid to speak? She walked closer to the arbiter's bench. Real peace comes when people choose it freely. Real order comes when people believe their laws are fair. The Federation maintains control through fear and force. Humans maintain order through consent and cooperation. You speak beautifully, Chief Arbiter Galshan said. But what proof do you offer that your system works better? Sarah smiled. You want proof? Look around this courtroom. 847 species joined the Federation, and not one of them ever challenged its authority. We're the first. Why do you think that is? The arbiters looked puzzled. It's because we're the first species you've encountered that actually has experience with freedom, Sarah said. Every other species you integrated was either primitive or authoritarian. They traded one master for another, but humans learned long ago that freedom is worth fighting for. She gestured to the Federation delegation. The prosecutor asks you to choose between order and chaos. But that's a false choice. The real choice is between freedom and slavery. Between government that serves the people and government that uses them. The Federation has prevented wars, Prosecutor Zetharl said. No, Sarah replied. The Federation has prevented resistance. There's a difference, and now you're learning what happens when you meet people who refuse to surrender their freedom. Chief Arbiter Galshan conferred with the other arbiters for a long time. Finally, he spoke. This court finds the human arguments troubling. The evidence suggests that Federation integration has indeed caused economic hardship for newer members. The court also notes that Federation law contains no provisions for species to leave voluntarily. Sarah felt hope rising in her chest. However, the arbiter continued. The court also notes that the Federation system has maintained galactic peace for 8 centuries. Change is dangerous. Stability has value, he paused. Therefore, this court rules that both legal systems have merit. The Federation shall continue to govern existing members. Earth shall be granted autonomous status, neither fully integrated nor expelled from galactic civilization. That's not good enough, Sarah said. The courtroom gasped. No one argued with arbiter decisions. Captain Chen, Chief Arbiter Galshan said dangerously, "This court has been generous. Do not test our patience." Sarah looked around the courtroom at hundreds of alien faces. With respect, honored arbiter, you're missing the point. This isn't just about Earth, this is about justice. If Federation law is wrong for humans, maybe it's wrong for other species too. She turned to address the entire courtroom. How many of your worlds would choose Federation membership if they had the chance to vote? How many would leave if they could? Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several alien delegates looked uncomfortable. That question, Sarah said, is why this case matters. It's not about Earth versus the Federation. It's about whether beings have the right to choose their own destiny. As debates erupted throughout the courtroom, Sarah realized that regardless of how the trial ended, something fundamental had changed. For the first time in 800 years, the Federation's authority was being questioned openly. And once people started asking questions, they rarely stopped. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the Federation war fleet approach Earth on her tactical display. 3,000 ships, representing the combined military might of 800 worlds, moved in perfect formation toward humanity's home system. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Status report, she ordered. 112 human ships ready for combat, Commander Rodriguez reported. All civilian vessels have been evacuated to the outer system. The odds were hopeless. Even if every human ship was perfect, they were outnumbered 30-1. But Admiral Chen wasn't thinking about odds anymore. She was thinking about something War Commander Zethrak had said during his ultimatum broadcast. Resistance is futile. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. It was exactly the wrong thing to say to humans. Incoming transmission from the Federation flagship, Lieutenant Torres announced. The main screen showed War Commander Zethrak, a massive reptilian being with scars covering half his face. Behind him stood rows of Federation officers from dozens of different species. Admiral Chen, he said, his voice deep and threatening. I am here to end this rebellion. Your legal tricks have caused enough confusion. The Federation Council has authorized me to restore order through force. Hello, War Commander, Admiral Chen replied calmly. I notice you brought a few friends. Mock me if you wish, Zethrak said. You face the combined might of galactic civilization. Your primitive weapons cannot stand against us. Surrender now and your planet will be spared. Admiral Chen leaned back in her command chair. That's an interesting offer, but I have a counter-proposal. Leave our system now and we won't have to embarrass you in front of the entire galaxy. Several Federation officers behind Zethrak made sounds that might have been laughter. The War Commander's expression grew even more threatening. You think courage will save you? He asked. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have shields that can stop your largest missiles. We have fought for thousands of years. I'm sure you have, Admiral Chen said. But there's something you should know about humans. We don't fight fair. She cut the transmission and turned to her bridge crew. All ships battle plan Alpha. Remember, they expect us to line up and trade shots like gentlemen. Let's disappoint them. The Federation fleet moved forward in textbook formation. Heavy battleships in front, support vessels behind. Perfect spacing to maximize firepower and minimize losses. It was the same formation they had used successfully for centuries, which was exactly why Admiral Chen had spent months figuring out how to beat it. Execute, she ordered. The human fleet split into 5 groups and scattered in different directions. Instead of meeting the Federation head-on, they spread out across the solar system. On the Federation flagship, War Commander Zethrak watched with confusion as the human ships seemed to run away. Sir, his tactical officer said, they're not engaging. Should we pursue? Of course, Zethrak replied. Run down the cowards, make an example of them. The Federation fleet broke formation to chase the human ships. It was the first mistake they made, but not the last. Admiral Chen's group led a third of the Federation fleet toward Jupiter. As the alien ships followed them into the gas giant's gravity well, hidden human ships emerged from the planet's moons. The Federation found themselves caught in crossfire, with gravity making it difficult to maneuver. Meanwhile, Commander Rodriguez led his squadron in what looked like a desperate attack on the Federation's supply ships. As enemy vessels moved to intercept him, human ships that had been hiding in the asteroid belt opened fire from behind. The Federation had better technology, but they weren't prepared for an enemy that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. Sir, the Federation tactical officer reported to War Commander Zethrak, we're taking heavy losses in the Jupiter engagement, and the asteroid belt force is cutting through our supply lines. How? Zethrak demanded. Our ships are superior. They're targeting our weapons and engines instead of trying to destroy us, the officer said. When our ships are disabled, they rescue our crews and take them prisoner. What? Zethrak couldn't believe what he was hearing. They're taking prisoners? During a battle? On Admiral Chen's ship, Dr. Warren Kim was coordinating the prisoner operations. Bring the Zephyrian crew to Medical Bay 3, she ordered. Make sure they're treated for injuries and given food. Ma'am, one of her assistants said, some of the alien prisoners are asking why we're helping them. They expected to be killed. Dr. Warren Kim sighed. Explain to them that humans have laws about how to treat prisoners of war. Even enemy soldiers have rights. Back on the Federation flagship, War Commander Zethrak was receiving reports that made no sense. The humans were winning, but they weren't fighting like any enemy he had ever faced. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the disabled ship Righteous Fury. The human commander wants to speak with you." "Put it through," Zethrak ordered. The screen showed Captain Williams of the Earth cruiser Defiant. Behind him stood several Federation prisoners, and they looked healthy and unharmed. "War Commander," Captain Williams said, "we have 47 of your crew in our medical bay. They're receiving full treatment for their injuries. We're prepared to return them to you under prisoner exchange protocols." "Prisoner exchange?" Zethrak asked. "What games are you playing?" "No games," Captain Williams replied. "According to human law, prisoners of war must be treated humanely and returned when hostilities end. We don't kill defeated enemies." One of the Federation prisoners stepped forward. "War Commander, sir, they've treated us better than our own medical staff does. They've fed us, healed our wounds, and answered our questions about human society." Zethrak stared at the screen. "You're healing enemy soldiers so you can send them back to fight you again?" "That's right," Captain Williams said, "because they're not our enemies. They're soldiers following orders just like we are. Our real enemy is the system that sent them here." "This is madness," Zethrak said. "Maybe," Captain Williams agreed, "but it's human madness, and it seems to be working." The battle continued for 3 days. Every time the Federation adapted to human tactics, the humans changed their approach. They hit and ran. They rescued prisoners. They targeted weapons instead of life support. They followed rules of war that the Federation had never heard of. Most confusing of all, they kept talking to Federation crews, explaining human legal concepts even in the middle of combat. On the 3rd day, War Commander Zethrak found himself in an impossible position. Half his fleet was disabled. The other half was scattered across the solar system, trying to chase human ships that refused to stand and fight. He had enough firepower left to destroy Earth cities, but only by committing what humans called war crimes. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "Admiral Chen is requesting a meeting under flags of truce." "She wants to surrender?" Zethrak asked hopefully. "No, sir. She wants to discuss terms for our surrender." War Commander Zethrak sat in stunned silence. He commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. He had weapons that could destroy planets. He represented 800 worlds. And he was losing to a species that had been in space for less than a century. "Sir?" his officer asked. "Should we accept the meeting?" Zethrak looked around his bridge at officers from dozens of different species. For the first time, he saw doubt in their eyes. They had expected an easy victory over primitive rebels. Instead, they had encountered something the galaxy had never seen before. An enemy that fought harder when cornered, that treated prisoners with respect, and that somehow managed to win while following rules their enemies didn't even understand. "Set up the meeting," he said finally. "I want to know how they did this." As the Federation fleet limped toward the meeting point, War Commander Zethrak wondered if perhaps the humans were right about something else too. Maybe there were better ways to run a civilization than at the point of a gun. The thought scared him almost as much as losing the battle had. 5 years after the Battle of Sol, former Captain Sarah Chen stood in the Hall of Galactic Justice on New Geneva Station, watching the first graduation ceremony of the Interspecies Constitutional Academy. Beings from 67 different worlds sat in the audience, wearing the robes of newly certified constitutional scholars. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. "Distinguished graduates," Sarah said, addressing the class, "you represent something that has never existed before. A generation of leaders trained in the principles of limited government and individual rights. You will return to your worlds carrying ideas that can transform civilizations." In the front row sat Kethval, the former Federation ambassador, who had become humanity's first alien student of constitutional law. Next to him sat War Commander Zethrak, who now taught military ethics at the academy. The sight of them working together still amazed Sarah. After the ceremony, Sarah walked through the station's corridors, remembering how this all began. The Federation hadn't collapsed overnight. Instead, it had slowly transformed as more species learned about human legal concepts and demanded similar rights for themselves. "Sarah," a familiar voice called out. She turned to see Dr. Warren Kim approaching with a data pad in her hands. How did the vote go on Rigel 7? Sarah asked. Dr. Warren Kim smiled. 87% in favor of the new constitution. They're officially the 43rd world to adopt human-style democratic reforms. Sarah nodded. It was faster than she had hoped. When the war ended, many people thought it would take centuries to change galactic civilization. But ideas, it turned out, spread faster than anyone expected. Any word from the Outer Rim territories? Sarah asked. That's the interesting news, Dr. Warren Kim said. 3 more species have requested independence from Federation control. They want to set up their own governments based on the Terran Accords. The Terran Accords had become the foundation document for the new galactic order. Unlike the old Federation system, it was built on consent. Species could join or leave freely. Governments had to get permission from their people to rule. Individual rights were protected by law. Not everyone liked the changes. And the Federation core worlds? Sarah asked. Dr. Warren Kim's expression grew more serious, still holding out. Chancellor Vexani issued another statement yesterday, calling the democratic movements chaos sponsored by human terrorists. Sarah sighed. About 200 worlds remained under the old Federation system, mostly the oldest and most powerful species. They refused to give up their privileged positions in the galactic hierarchy. The galaxy was now split between the old Federation and the new Republic, with dozens of independent worlds caught in between. At least there hasn't been any more fighting, Sarah said. Yet, Dr. Warren Kim replied, but the intelligence report suggests that some Federation hardliners are planning something. They can't accept that their system is failing. Sarah's communicator chimed. Admiral Chen, came the voice of Commander Torres, now captain of the Republic flagship Humanity's Hope. We have a situation. A Federation fleet is approaching the Centauri system. The colonists there are requesting assistance. Sarah closed her eyes. Centauri was one of the first systems to break away from Federation control and establish a democratic government. If the Federation was planning to retake it by force, I'll be right there, she said. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the Hope, watching the tactical display. 80 Federation ships surrounded the Centauri colony, but they weren't attacking yet. Open a channel to the Federation commander, Sarah ordered. The screen showed Admiral Morgan, one of the old guard Federation officers who had never accepted the peace treaty. Admiral Chen, he said coldly, you are interfering in Federation internal affairs. The Centauri system belongs to us. The people of Centauri voted to leave the Federation, Sarah replied. Under the Terran Accords, they have that right. The Terran Accords, Admiral Morgan said with disgust, are human propaganda designed to destroy galactic civilization. We do not recognize them. Then you're violating 43 separate peace treaties, Sarah said. Stand down, Admiral. Don't make this worse than it has to be. You think you can stop us? Admiral Morgan asked. You have 12 ships. We have 80, Sarah smiled. It was the same mistake the Federation kept making. They thought numbers were everything. Admiral, she said, before you do something you'll regret, you should know that this conversation is being broadcast live to 300 worlds across the galaxy. Everyone is watching to see what you do next. Admiral Morgan's expression changed. What? The Centauri colonists activated their emergency broadcast system when your fleet arrived, Sarah explained. Right now, beings on hundreds of worlds are watching you threaten peaceful civilians. How do you think that looks? On worlds across the galaxy, the same conversation was happening. In homes, schools, and government buildings, people were watching Federation ships surround a peaceful colony and threaten to attack if they didn't surrender their freedom. Public opinion, it turned out, was a powerful weapon. The colonists have 30 minutes to surrender, Admiral Morgan said, but his voice lacked conviction. Actually, Sarah said, they have all the time they want, because if you attack civilian targets, you won't just be fighting 12 Republic ships. You'll be fighting the 43 worlds that have signed the Accords, plus every independent system that supports the right of self-determination. She paused. And, Admiral, half your own crew comes from worlds that have voted to leave the Federation. Are you sure they'll follow orders to attack civilians? The transmission went silent for several minutes. Finally, Admiral Morgan returned. Admiral Chen, he said quietly, this is not over. I hope it is, Sarah replied. For all our sakes. The Federation fleet withdrew without firing a shot. Across the galaxy, beings who had watched the confrontation celebrated. The old Federation was powerful, but it was no longer feared. And without fear, Its authority was just an illusion. 6 months later, Sarah stood once again in the Academy's graduation hall, but this time as a guest. Kethaval had been chosen as the new director, and he was giving the opening address to an even larger class of constitutional scholars. "When I first met humans," he said, "I thought they were primitive and dangerous. I was half right. They were dangerous to systems based on oppression and fear. But they were not primitive. They had learned something that the rest of us had forgotten, that government serves at the consent of the governed." Sarah looked around the hall at representatives from over 100 different species. Some were from Republic worlds, some from independent systems, and a few were even from Federation territories where democratic movements were growing stronger every year. "The future of our galaxy," Kethaval continued, "will not be determined by the strongest military or the most advanced technology. It will be determined by ideas. And the idea that all beings have inherent rights and dignity is perhaps the most powerful force in the universe." After the ceremony, Sarah walked to her shuttle for the trip back to Earth. Her job as First Republic ambassador was largely ceremonial now. The new order was stable enough to run itself. She was looking forward to retirement, maybe teaching at the Academy, definitely spending more time with her family. "Admiral," Commander Torres called out as she reached the shuttle, "you might want to see this." He handed her a datapad with the latest intelligence reports. Sarah read quickly, then started to smile. 17 more Federation worlds have voted to hold independence referendums, Torres explained. "And Chancellor Vexani has announced his resignation." "The Federation Council is calling for new elections," Sarah laughed. "Elections? In the Federation Council? Who would have thought?" As her shuttle lifted off from New Geneva Station, Sarah looked back at the Academy through the viewport. Students from dozens of species were walking together, discussing legal theory and constitutional principles. Some would return to their worlds as judges, others as lawmakers, still others as teachers. All of them would carry with them the knowledge that there was a better way to organize a civilization, one based on consent rather than force, cooperation rather than domination, rights rather than privileges. The old Federation had conquered 800 worlds through superior firepower. The new Republic was spreading across the galaxy one graduate, one vote, one idea at a time, and that, Sarah thought, was a much more powerful force than any fleet of warships. The galaxy was finally learning what humans had discovered long ago, that freedom was not just worth fighting for. It was worth building for. And once you started building it, it was very hard to stop. Behind her, New Geneva Station continued its orbit, a bright light in the darkness of space, beacon of hope for any being who dreamed of choosing their own destiny. The revolution was complete, but the real work was just beginning.